video that is being streamed live. Look for the chat box on the side or bottom of the video.
Escalation in food prices this year has been dizzying and numbing at the same time. Agriculture in Jamaica is in a mess. Frankly speaking, it's simple people on the minimum wage or just above it cannot feed themselves on Jamaican food. Not with ground provisions having doubled in prices in the last 6 months, and vegetables, carrots, sweet pepper, pak choy, having gone up by 3 times their mid-year prices. Good day. I'm Franklin McKnight. This is the 149th episode of the Frankly Speaking Jamaica Podcast. Welcome. Please subscribe if you have not yet done so. The same link you use for this live podcast will take you and anyone with whom you share it to the recorded version of the podcast later. Thanks again. We are on food this week. And yes, imported foods have just kept going up in prices in the supermarket. From chicken to salted mackerel to rice and corned beef to cornmeal and peas, you name it. It's just been going. Frankly speaking, don't talk about the Eat Jamaican campaign. That just fizzled last month. It's been a cliche with no effect for years. Eat Jamaica. There's very little Jamaican food in the supermarkets. Well, go and take a look. And the local foods where you can find them are almost at double the price in the markets, markets remain filthy and chaotic. If you don't believe, go take a look. As to Jamaican favorites now, like sorrel and gungo peas, those are some of the scarcest things in the local markets. By the way, did you see someone advertising a gallon of sorrel for nearly $2,000? And why increasingly? Why can't we find local seeds to grow? Our own local seeds. All of this points to the inability of Jamaica to feed itself, to provide food at prices the average man can afford. It's what the big guys call food security. And frankly speaking, this in a country where agriculture contributes about 8% of the GDP. And there are all kinds of officials and educated agriculturalists around. And we can hardly hear anything from them that's sensible. Frankly speaking, Jamaica's agriculture is in a mess. Don't look to the Jamaica Agricultural Society either. It's in a mess too. We are not even sure who are its leaders. Some of them are going to court in January. Well, one thinker and doer in the food business is our guest today. International business and trade economist. International business and trade economist, Dr. Samuel Scott. He attended farm school. He's an old farmer, as they say, worked his way up, has done projects in about 70 countries. But before we can call on him, let's hear a line or two what Desmond would like to say if we get the time. Desmond.
We want to talk about the Integrity Commission and the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister fight with the Integrity Commission.
Right, and if we get the time, we're going to go there. Let's also say, and also we have with us today, Winnie and Desmond. Those are panelists. Let's also say we're going to bring on agricultural expert and publisher Patrick Maitland after our discussion with Dr. Scott. So let me remind you, just press that button to subscribe to the Frankly Speaking Jamaica Podcast. Here, though, is Dr. Scott. Welcome, sir. Dr.
Thank
Scott,
you.
tell us now, what's going on with Jamaican agriculture?
Well, I think I can share a couple of things that I talk to a number of friends. Being a part of the old farmer fraternity, you speak with some of the professionals who are there, as well as speaking to some of the farmers that are there. In my third options, I do some farming and stuff. But you know, over the years, I recognize that you have. I'm an optimist, so I always see the glass half full, and in that, I see you have the expertise there. I was just off the phone with one of my agriculture father, won't call his name, but was inside livestock and we were going over to stuff like that. The main part of the exercise in the 53 ACP countries, and I like to go wide and then narrow and focusing, is this. Successive leaders in all of those countries from about the 50s right up to now, two things happen. A failure to respect agriculture, and secondly, the treatment of farmers as subsistence farmers. And I want to tell you, some farmers are smart enough that many of them even smarter than some of the leaders in many of those countries. And so I start out by saying this. Anyone who controls your food, your water, your energy, and your infrastructure, they're going to control you. And therefore, what you may have seen, where food has become the major issue with respect to empires falling and empires rising, food has always been the foundation. I frankly believe that in the case of Jamaica, it's just a question of getting integrated professionals sitting down, integratedly, in looking at what we need, how we can do it, where we can do it, who are the players that should be involved, and set up some storage and distribution system that will move the 90 enterprises that you're going to go. And then if you look at the 16 that was prioritized on the CARICOM for funding under the EPA, European Partnership Agreement, that's where we should start from. But there is also something that you find affecting agriculture. This is where I'm at. The vicissitudes of risk and uncertainties as a result of weather and programs not being able to get farmers fast to get back fast on their feet, that is going to impact food prices and what have you. You have the base of 240,000 farmers. You have the land. I am sure we can move some water inside of it. I think more or less that we can normalize the production process as we go through. That's my observation.
But
Doctor,
Dr.
go ahead,
Samuels,
Desmond.
Yes.
Dr. Samuels,
Yes.
who would you say should take the lead in developing and pushing forward Jamaica's agriculture?
It's a partnership. Let me tell you why I come from where I come from. My sphere of work now is mainly in the area of private sector engagement and development. And I see the private sector has to play a pivotal role in agriculture. But the private sector will complain that there is no consistency in policies and programs, and the enabling environment becomes a little bit too risky for them to go into that kind of capital expansion. So let me take one industry that I was familiar with, and one is in my backyard. When I was a student and a young professional, we had one of the largest beef cattle herd in the Western Hemisphere here outside of United States and Latin America.
Yes.
And that was the private sector driving that piece. So the good old farmer who is now at the Supreme Farm, Pinnock, used to run about 5 to 6,000 head of animal. Reynolds used to have a processing plant up in Lidford. You could get any of the steaks that you want to see there, more or less. As a youngster, I used to see the dairy industry and the citrus people. You used to have the bog walk, and you used to have canning and stuff like that. I'm not going to touch sugar because that's another game, more or less. I see spices, pimento. It was the small farmers, but you have the institutions and government playing a significant role in creating the environment. Here's this. Products are driven by markets. Once markets are stable, you are going to have people want to engage in the opportunity. And I'm going to use one example to close out here. As I said earlier on to Franklin and the rest of the team, and everybody can call me Scotty. That's what I love to be called. In the next 5 years, everything that you're going in the Caribbean is going to be growing inside the United States from the Mason-Dixie lines come down because of the microclimate that is there. We can see an element of that. Let's look at the diaspora market for things like pepper, Scotch bonnet, Port Callaloo, and sorrel, and what have you. There is a market right now between the up-south market, New York, Detroit, what have you, coming down to Atlanta, right back down to the Keys. Anywhere there's a cluster of Caribbean folks, you have these folks who are farmers with a backyard, or they find a little plot where they grow these items, and they have market year-round. They don't need the U.S. government to tell them to plant these items. But one thing the U.S. government recognized is that this is a specialty crop that is employing people, and therefore within USDA, they have a specialty crop program and a loan program that cover those items. So I can take anybody who have a piece of land here and say, you want to grow some callaloo, or you want to grow some peppers, because the 109 stores is out there within the region for that. Come, you can get access to capital. You can get access to working
Dr. Scott,
capital.
Desmond, going to come back on you, Dr. Scott.
So, Doc,
Scott,
yes,
Dr.
Doc,
Scott, whatever you
touch,
Desmond, let me ask you a question again, man.
Hold on.
I'm
you
interested
touch
in it.
the button. You touch the button, Doc. You need a private public sector initiative. So what we are seeing now, that the government, the public sector is falling behind, neglecting agriculture. And you pointed a while ago about the neglect. The farmers, the small farmers in Jamaica, they are neglected badly. As we speak right now, small farmers in St. Elizabeth, Portland, St. Mary, suffering. Promises made to them have not been kept. And therefore, what we are suffering from here is lack of production.
Desmond, I don't see it more as farmers being neglected by ways and ways. Small farmers inherently need institutions and organizations that will work for them on their behalf, because what that farmer wants to do is to produce, but they do not want to go through the headache of registering the farms, making sure that when the loan programs come about, they sit down and fill in the forms, having an extension partner that works with them with the outreach and all that kind of stuff. If there are not institutions to help, especially with when we did the study and look at the 250,000 farmers in Jamaica, right? You saw a different category of farmers. Those who were on the larger side of the operation, they had the wherewithal to run agriculture as a business. It is that level at the middle and the bottom that is very vulnerable. So what I would say, you need to have more cooperatives, more producer organization, a proper integration of the JS and the Jamaica Manufacturer and Exporters Association, and lead persons who are recognized in the community that there is not a partisan approach to feeding the country. And that's where the action is. So the subvention done to the Ministry of Agriculture has to be more. It should be doubled. $12 billion a year. That should be just $12 billion in mandatory allocation. And I'm going to come to you why I'm using this word mandatory. And another 12,000 for discretionary spending, where you integrate that public-private partnership to get that going and show the sustainability of the market. We just completed a survey of supermarkets in Jamaica in the 4 cities. And Franklin is right. And we did it because of a private sector feasibility study that we were asked to do by some other folks. And 90% of the items were imported. However, there are items that we see that the market, you could penetrate those markets to go. And that is where I'm going to...
again. Tell us a little bit more about that study. And is that study generally available?
No.
Okay,
it's a private,
roughly 90% of the
90% of those items you see in the store that are primary and processed agricultural products are from overseas, more or less, right? Those items like many of those items could be produced. So the people who are going to use that data is looking at how can we come in as agripreneurs to be able to engage farmers and individuals to get involved in it. And I speak to farmers, I speak to some of my classmates. I'm on the forum with quite a few folks. And believe me, man, they have identified everything that we need to go right.
Before you go any further, let me just remind our viewers, yes, we're looking at your messages coming in. Winnie is going to jump in and read them shortly. We're getting a few messages. And Winnie, whenever you're ready, Winnie, just jump in. But Dr. Scott or Scotty, our old farmer, or international expert, one of the things I wanted to mention, because you mentioned this earlier, and it's important. I've just been speaking with 2 councillors. One on
okay, I hope you can hear me. You went a while ago. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
You want to go ahead?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes.
I realize that there is something wrong. So proceed, because
all right, we're losing a little bit of Winnie. Yes. So what I was saying, we had 2 councillors, one JLP, one PNP. I've been talking to. They're from the south of St. Anne, where there was the effects of burial. And the people continue to come to them and complain that they have not been getting the assistance. That they have not been getting the assistance that has been promised. And that some of it gone through politics, and some of them crying victimization. Well, I don't know if victimization, because both sides are affected. And you mentioned that the need for them to come back quickly. Now, things like that. I mean, the government is saying we're putting out so much and we're giving them so much. And the farmers themselves are complaining. They go to the councillors and say, "Councillor, I don't get no fertilizer, I don't get the seeds." So
you say, well, here's this. In most developing and orderly society, the political directorate should not be responsible for the doling out or the attractment of resources for producers, period.
Absolutely.
You have a government body, which is the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries. And this goes back to fundamentally how we structure these organizations to work. And in every parish, you should have some frontline agencies that deals with farmers. Let me tell you about what I know in many of the developing countries. You have one agency that deals with the money, the finance and stuff like that. You have one agency that deals with the infrastructure, irrigation, and all of the things that needs to be done for their environment. And you have one agency that deals with the wealth, the well-being of the farmer. That would be for housing, stuff like that. When a farmer is registered, which you have 200 and odd registered, in St. Anne, you have 23,000 farmers. That farmer is registered, that farmer goes to that office, and that office has developed the relationship where his acreage report, his production report,
his yield and harvest report is known over time, then you can have a quick response program to assist that farmer to get back up in the field. The whole issue about I don't want to work with the government, and the government is supposed to be your best friend as a farmer. And this is where I come down that when you splinter off the resources to be channeled through political directorates, you're going to come up with issues that you are raising. The other leg of the stool that needs to be active is those NGOs, non-governmental organizations that are in place doing, and this is why the ministry needs some more monies now, because in that this humanitarian and other discretionary funding that I mentioned, they would be able to contract those outreach agencies, maybe JS, maybe other agencies, where they can identify those farmers and say to those farmers, hey, look, I'm just coming from a conference a few days ago. In that room were producers who produce 250,000 of the top commodities that this country knows feed the world. But there's a body that is able to lobby for them. There are agencies that can help them to open the door of those agencies. And you have the government system for accountability that is inside that, more or less. And for the sake of me, we have been saying this since they gave us scholarship to go to school and we come back. Nobody wants to reorganize agriculture around a common agricultural policy and the setting up of what is known as a national farm plan. Don't tell me about Vision 2030 or what have you. I don't even think we are going to be able to hit those milestones. I don't think so. But we have not been able to integrate those pillars such that the private sector can be energized. The stakeholders on the other side can be energized to do things. All we do is ever so often we're like cats and dogs on a hot bricks. We holler and cry without understanding how to pry the system open and how to make sure that those systems are responsive.
Dr. Scott, Dr. Scott, don't you and your colleagues, not you so much because you are international and you're doing everything all over, aren't the people people educated in agriculture, the agronomists and the whole set of them in Jamaica, aren't they part of that problem in terms of not providing the leadership in Jamaica, the opinion, the ideas?
Yes, man. As a matter of fact, Franklin, you know on the forum that Patrick has on, more or less, you have people who form camps and debates and what have you, when there is no need for that.
Take up partisan positions.
No, there's no need for that. What you need to look at is what isn't working. Let me tell you. I work on a project in Africa, if you bear with me for 2 minutes. And that project was to look at 42 dairies to be supported. A certain international organization worked through NGO organization to support them. And the CEO of that organization will remain nameless, but anything that you do in your life is affected by things that he builds and manufactures. He looked at everybody in the audience, 120 people from different countries, and said, it's a 5-year project. Take the first 2 to 3 years and tell me everything that does not work in those dairies. And we're going to make sure, a system approach, to make sure that you have the resources to correct that. One of the big problems with some of those dairies, you could not supply afternoon milk, because there is no refrigerated ways to get that. They come in and they put in coolers and collection centers for those milk. Milk production went up and up and up. In one country where the dairy operation couldn't work, they reprogrammed it to look at what is known as dual purpose poultry and target women and youth to expand those things. That's the kind of stuff that our agricultural think tank, which I thought we would have matured to be able to do that, would work. And we can't go back to the history of what happened and what didn't happen. We now have to look forward and say, this is what we have, this is what we want. how we can bring those things together. Because here is this: votes will come and votes will go, but the farmer and the food and the water and the energy and the infrastructure will always be there. And the question is, how are you going to bring the nexus of those things to come together to serve your country? There are people who are doing it, and you need to understand how to do it than the blasted grandstanding that many people try to do. Sorry, I should not have swear on your program, sir, but I'm excitable. The grandstanding that we do is not necessary, because we have 600-700 of us with degrees and what have you. What are we doing for our community to help the small farmer to understand that he's in a global space of almost 2 to 3 billion farmers, and he has to make sure that his farming enterprise is operating at optimum? That's the bottom line, brother.
And another part of the bottom line I want to ask you now. So you have given us a general view of how you see it and the efficiencies and the changes. Just talk to us for a minute or minute and a half about what advice you would give a government, this government, the opposition, whoever takes charge of agriculture for the next 5 years or so. What advice would you be giving to say this is where you want to go?
The first thing, and I've given it over and over and over to my peers and what have you, go back to the drawing board and come up with a farm bill that is driven by 12 to 13 titles, right? Enterprise and commodity. Structure it to cover 5 and 6 year program that when they're authorized, no matter what changes have been made in the political directorate or what have you, those programs are in place, right? And they are entrenched inside of it. Go back and start to look at area officers, regional office. That is a one-stop window for the small farmer to come in to look at access to land, access to capital, access to input, access to improve infrastructure, access to markets. Those things are doable and it can be done. You are allocating $12 billion a year for a Ministry of Agriculture. Try to move it up even to 15 and use that 3 billion to be able to do the things that many folks are doing. People may say, and I close with this, people may say you can't take things from elsewhere to work because your environment may be different. I am telling you that all the countries I've gone through, the small farmers are being faced by similar problems when it comes to the input markets and the output markets, how you integrate them. And believe me, it's a partnership. Yes, sir, Mr. Richards.
One of the issues we have in Jamaica is that the politicians, a number of the politicians are importers of food and food products. Yes. They have businesses that are involved in that. And therefore, what you are saying there, unless we have a new thinking, we are not going to see it from this crop of politicians, because they want us to continue with to import as much as we can, because that is part of their business.
It's profitable.
Yeah, but here's this now. All those invoices that reach Jamaica under the Freedom for Information, you're supposed to be able to get those invoices, so to speak. As a matter of fact, I remember I was in St. Kitts when one of the invoices on a particular item imported by a certain group straight to my desk, and I was able to call the supermarket and do a breakdown on the prices. If you had a good think tank or a good group inside this group, that Patrick have about 240, as some of the experts are 300 and change. If you were able to have good analysis to see what is coming in, when it is coming in. And I'm going to bring a little, we never like to talk about small island, but small islands have some things that are successful. St. Lucia come up with a program that they were able to monitor import. As a matter of fact, one of the largest importer of stuff in St. Lucia is one of my batchmates. Is an old farmer. And when I went to him, he says, Scotty, when I look at it, they know which window that they cannot release license to bring in certain things, especially for the hotels and stuff like that. What is happening inside Jamaica is that the professionals are all happy in doing the things that they want to do, but do not understand that at the local level and the broader level, data has to come in. Do you think any government want to see 6 weeks of a report saying that X number of pounds of items were imported and impacting this and what have you, and you're keeping the pressure going, my brother? No, they don't. And therefore, they'll make adjustment. I told Franklin just a while ago something that happened when I was over by Cristiano, that it was a direct political directive with the private sector that was able to release 40 million pounds of root crops into the system. And all we had to do as a private sector was to respond, provide credit, organize the logistics to pick up and delivery, and ensure we made a ton load of money in the exercise. That is what to be needed, because it is not unreasonable to say, look, at this time of the year, all on some of the imports on this side, but when you don't have data to drive the system, or a group to drive the system objectively, you're going to have the kind of nonsense that you are seeing, more or less. And no country can operate that way.
And you are spot on, especially with the professional behavior and educated people in Jamaica. The professionals, all the professional groups, we're not just talking about agriculture now. They have let down the side. They have let down people of educated.
Corruption, man.
Corruption. Corrupt. They have the partisan ideas. I mean, you mentioned, the one group where we're talking about them. They have the partisan ideas. They back up the political part. They don't want to say, for example, the agricultural system needs the type of transformation you're talking about. They're just not willing to go on because it's fattening them. Right now, it's fattening them.
Yeah.
And it's so wrong. We could talk to you for 3 years.
Forever. Franklin put us into trouble 40-something years ago, Nice trouble. There's something called good trouble. I was reminding him. That same project I told you about was an article that he did along with another person who is retired now. And I remember the Prime Minister calling in the Minister of Agriculture, the Permanent Secretary, people from the food production, as well as people from the private sector. And we sat down, I think it was a Thursday, and work out the broader parts of the distribution. Because all the Prime Minister wanted to hear is really if there was 40,000 products out there that was getting competition from imports like Irish potato and stuff like that.
And for those who didn't hear you earlier, because we were just talking, you're talking about what you were able to do out of the AMC.
Out of the AMC. And what he did, he pushed us back to the ministry. And between people, I can't call name now because they are good guys, Lenny Morgan, Raphael Smith, we set up a distribution depot at the AMC where we could consolidate items from the Christiana food belt and deliver that into the AMC. Higglers who are even from that area didn't have to come to Christiana to pick up stuff anymore. They go with a voucher to the AMC and get the Irish potato and go and drop it all over the different points of Kingston and markets and stuff like that. That was a direct public-private partnership to release distribution, but you had to have data to support it. And this is where our group now needs to start to sponsor those things, to know where the items are, to be able to direct the politician and go back for more or less. Huh?
Business and trade economist, Dr. Samuel Scott. Scotty.
Thank you.
They have some other name for him, his batchmates says they pride him, but he has done work in about 70 countries. He knows about agriculture. And we are very grateful for you, sir, for some of your perspective on the broad outlook of agriculture. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And it's always a pleasure. I am happy, and I'll be with you in walking the talk. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Well, Winnie, you were with us sometimes, Winnie, and sometimes off. And I saw a lot of comments coming in. We weren't able to
Yes.
pick them up. Winnie, you have any of them at your fingertips? Because we're going to Patrick Maitland right now. But Winnie, you go ahead first.
Okay.
Go ahead, Winnie.
Go ahead. Most of the comments, if you can hear me, Rubian Forbes, Joan Green, Warrell Jeffrey, these persons have commented. And Joe Green says, interesting conversation. There's Sonia Nevis or Nevis, top of the evening, everyone. But we have our regulars. Oh, Warrell Jeffrey says, many of the farmers will tell you that the bank will not give them a loan. But if they want a loan to buy a car, the banks will quickly give it to them. And I would have asked about the PC Bank. Where is that? Rubian Forbes, the government needs to place more emphasis on backyard farming, says Rubian. Thank you all. Marva Hewitt says, Dr. Scott, you're saying exactly my concerns. It is my daily cry that Jamaica is asleep. We spend our time pretending all is well, and we're running out of time, says Marva. Thank you all. Marva says again, Dr. Scott, this is food for thought. Thank you. And thank you to all those who have commented. Keep the comments coming. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have Patrick Maitland very quickly. Patrick, I don't know if you heard.
Patrick is the minister. Patrick is the minister's spokesman. Go ahead, Patrick.
No, you can't. No, Desmond. You can't introduce a man as that man.
Don't do that.
Patrick is an agriculturalist.
Yeah.
He runs the agriculturalist magazine.
Patrick is the minister.
Business. And we want to hear his thoughts.
Patrick is the minister.
Patrick, go ahead.
Patrick is the minister's spokesman.
No,
Patrick,
sir, I don't speak for anybody.
Why is agriculture just struggling so much, Patrick?
So here's the point now. Everything Scotty has said is spot on.
I'm not hearing you so well.
Everything
Patrick.
that Mr. Scott is saying is correct. So we must move to the solution now.
Yeah.
What I think is the real problem is leadership. The political leadership that agriculture needs. There's nobody providing that political leadership in the cabinet, no matter who you take it. You have to have a strong individual, because if you speak to the minister, he's very much aware of these issues, and you will hear him agree to it. But when it comes on to the action plan, no action is taken. And
Patrick, sorry, Patrick, I just want an explanation of that. When you say the political leadership, where is that? Where would that be coming from?
All right, I tell people all the while, if you look at tourism with Ed Bartlett, the strides that they have made over the years is because
Patrick, why have we lost you? Go ahead, Patrick. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. If you look at tourism, the strides that they have made is because Ed Bartlett has been there for many years, and even during opposition, he continues to shadow tourism, and he spent a lot of time see to it that the tourism policy remains, right? There's no such person in agriculture. Personally, I was expecting Bobby Montague as an agriculturalist to be that person, right? Because no matter how you take it, there is always need to be a set of people whose influence it will be listened to at the political level. Because you have to understand Jamaica, no matter all the talking we are doing, it boils down to political decision in the cabinet, all right? No matter how you take it. So the importation, everybody knows. As that government change, you have a new set of importers come in and import the same food, right? That always happens. everybody knows that there's some level of corruption in the system, because even when the food is in short supply, is in huge supply, good supply, it's still being imported, right? So if you don't have the politics right, and if you don't have the person to really stand up to say, this is what the country needs, and stand up for the country, stand up for the farmers, it's not going to be better. Believe me, all these talking that we're doing, we all are aware of it. The people in the political arena are aware of it too, but there is nobody standing up for agriculture. Nobody.
Desmond, you want to respond?
Let me just wrap up on this. Nobody.
I don't know where that sound is coming from.
Nobody.
Desmond, you want to respond?
No, Patrick is right. You need political leadership. The current, when you talk to the farmers, I have spoken to and I'm talking about the small farmers and farmers in St. Elizabeth. When they tell me, so for example, that if supplies of fertilizer is political activists who get the fertilizer to distribute, and what they do, they sell the fertilizers.
That's right.
So you need a voice in the cabinet who is going to stand up and defend agriculture, to put forward the programs that are necessary to grow the sector. Remember what Scotty said? We need a private public sector initiative. The private sector is there, the public sector is dragging its feet.
Well, look at the case of table egg. So the Minister Clark removed the GCT of imported food, right? Yet him allow it to remain on eggs. Table
of
eggs.
Course, yes.
You look at all these dynamics, you realize something not right. You look at the farmland.
But Patrick, where is the voice? Where is the lobbying voice and pressure of the JAS and the people? You have a lot of people in your group. Patrick has a group of viewers, a group of experts, agricultural experts, people who operate at various levels. Mm-hmm. But where is their voice? Where is their pressure on the system? Where is it for them to back up the minister or back him up against the wall? Where are
Franklin, one of the things that you don't realize, Listen, you have a lot of toothless bulldogs around the place, right? These people are afraid of themselves.
That's right.
They're afraid. They are not people who are willing to get up and stand up and speak in defense of an issue. Right. They're afraid. People who are afraid cannot defend issues,
That's
it's just like in our profession right now. When I talk, some journalists are telling me journalists are afraid of politicians, and I am shocked when I hear that.
And tell it to tone down.
But Patrick, before we finish, I really want to get this. I know some people who still require you operate between Jamaica and the US North.
Yes.
And I know some people who still require Jamaican produce up there in different parts of America and in the UK. They can't get any farmers killed in Jamaica. What's happening?
Cannot get yam. Let me tell you, can't get yam, you can't get potato, you can't get ackee, you can't get breadfruit, you can't get anything in the abundance that you want. Nothing in the abundance.
And where are we going? Where is it going? I'm just briefly, Desmond said you're a spokesman for the minister. But you tell us briefly where it's going.
No, listen, I'm not any spokesman.
Desmond is your friend, man. So
I know. Okay. So that's why he's behaving like that. But listen, you look at the production level. The production level now, it just barely moving. Plus, one of the biggest problems we're having, and every day I talk about it, is the failure of the government for the last 18 years to conduct an agricultural census. They are leaving it up to Statin. Statin can't even do a population census. Statin don't even understand agriculture. So for 18 years, all the data we are working with, it's some data where people have no.
Well, you heard what Scotty was saying a while ago. We need the data.
We need the data.
They are
just relying on regular production data. and feel comfortable with it. But what they don't understand is that production data don't show capacity. Don't show you to say, well, production of 15 ton. But we know we have land can do 100 ton, right? So over the last many years, 18 years now, and nobody listened to me about it. It's like,
Patrick, we're gonna leave it there. We want to thank you and best of luck with your Impact Awards coming up this weekend.
right. I hope to see you there, man.
Let me remind you all to just press that button and subscribe. On behalf of Desmond Richards, Winnie Anderson Brown, Joshua Black, Images. He's our production man and he's done an excellent job. Technical producer, Joshua Black Media Services. I'm Franklin McKnight. Until then.